November 1955. Nottingham Prison, one of England's most secure correctional facilities, found itself at the mercy of Alfred George Hines, a man whose ingenuity and determination defied its walls and guards. This wasn't just any ordinary prisoner. Hines would go on to escape 3 high-security prisons, spending a total of 841 days as a fugitive. Who was this audacious man? What drove him to risk his freedom time and again? And how did he earn the legendary nickname Houdini Hines? Born in 1917 in London, Alfred George Hines had a childhood shaped by tragedy and hardship. At a tender age, he lost his father, who died as a result of the brutal punishment of 10 lashes with a cat-o'-nine tails for armed robbery, a punishment so severe it proved fatal. Following this devastating loss, Hines was placed in foster care. His turbulent behavior led to a series of placements in different foster homes and eventually, time in the juvenile detention center. By the time he was 7 years old, Hines had already staged his first escape, managing to flee from the juvenile system. Left to survive alone on the streets of London, he relied on his cunning and resourcefulness, eventually finding some sort of stability with foster parents in the West Midlands. There, he began learning metalwork and machine operations, skills that would later serve him well in his escapades. As a teenager, Hines was arrested for petty theft and sent to a Borstal, an institution meant to reform young offenders. However, the so-called educational system was often little more than a junior version of prison. Hines escaped from Borstal as well, marking yet another step in his growing reputation for defiance. His next interaction with the law came during World War II when he joined the Royal Tank Corps. But true to his nature, Hines deserted shortly after arriving on the continent. He had acquired the art of camouflage and evasion as a deserter, honing the skills that would later earn him infamy. "I won't stay where I don't belong," Hines once remarked, a mantra that seemed to guide his life. In 1953, Alfred George Hines, better known as Alfie, became entangled in a case that would cement his infamy in British criminal history. Accused of orchestrating a massive jewelry heist in London, Hines and his accomplices were said to have stolen $30,000 worth of jewelry and $5,000 in cash, a staggering amount equivalent to over $300,000 today. Despite his adamant protests of innocence, Hines was convicted, and his trial would become the backdrop for one of the most audacious chapters of his life. The heist was a masterful operation, targeting a high-end jewelry store in London. It involved precision planning and execution, with the criminals expertly cracking a safe to access the valuables. Arrested shortly after the robbery by Herbert Sparks, a former chief superintendent of Scotland Yard's elite flying squad, Hines found himself under the spotlight. Sparks, renowned for his sharp investigative skills, believed he had finally captured the mastermind behind one of the era's most significant heists. The evidence against Hines, however, was largely circumstantial. Prosecutors claimed that residue from the explosive used to breach the safe had been found on Hines' hands. This, combined with his criminal history as a known safecracker, became the cornerstone of the prosecution's argument. Despite these claims, there was no direct, irrefutable proof tying Hines to the crime. Still, the jury took only 30 minutes to return a guilty verdict. Hines, maintaining his innocence, declared, "The only thing I'm guilty of is bad luck." He contended that he had moved away from a life of crime and was living with his brother in Staines, working in his construction business. The defense argued that there was insufficient evidence and pointed out that no clear alibi or motive had been established. Hines himself would later say, "I became a victim of my past, convicted not by evidence but by reputation." The sentencing was severe. 12 years in Nottingham Prison, a facility known for housing some of England's most notorious criminals. For Hines, the thought of spending over a decade locked away for a crime he claimed he hadn't committed was unbearable. His resilience and resourcefulness, honed over years of escaping difficult circumstances, refused to let him resign to his fate. He was determined to prove his innocence, even if it meant taking justice into his own hands. Hines later explained his state of mind during this period. "They put me in prison for something I didn't do, so I decided I wouldn't stay there. I had no choice but to fight back the only way I could." This fierce determination set the stage for the first of his legendary escapes. Although Hines' public claims of innocence attracted little immediate sympathy, they would later resonate with the British public, especially after his escapes began to make headlines. The stolen $30,000 and additional $90,000 in valuables remained unaccounted for, adding an air of mystery to the case. Hines' time in Nottingham Prison marked the beginning of a relentless battle against his imprisonment. Escape 1. Nottingham Prison, 1955. Hines began planning his escape from Nottingham Prison with meticulous precision. Using the resources available in the prison workshop, he managed to steal a hacksaw, which he used to cut through various obstacles. Not stopping there, Hines also crafted wooden planks into a makeshift ramp that would help him scale the prison walls. However, his most ingenious move was memorizing the shape of the key to his cell and creating a brass replica, a feat of resourcefulness that reflected his sharp mind and determination. On a cold November day in 1955, Alfred Hines put his daring plan into action, utilizing his handmade tools and his unparalleled ingenuity. He scaled the 20-foot-high prison walls using the ramp he had fashioned. Under the cover of night, he vanished into freedom, leaving behind baffled guards and a shaken prison administration. For the next 245 days, Hines evaded capture, living life as a fugitive. He didn't spend this time quietly, however. Determined to prove his innocence, he wrote letters to newspapers and government authorities to share his story. In a letter to the Daily Herald, he famously declared, "I escaped because it was the only way left to fight for justice." Hines believed that the judicial system had failed him, and his escape was a last resort to draw attention to his plight. His appeals caught the public's attention and painted him as a man fighting against a system that had wrongly convicted him. His freedom came to an end in July 1956, when authorities finally tracked him down in Dublin. He was living under an alias in a modest cottage, using the money he had allegedly stolen during the 1953 jewelry heist to maintain his low profile. Despite his recapture, a significant portion of the stolen funds, around $90,000, remained unaccounted for, adding to the intrigue surrounding Hines' case. When brought back to face the courts for his escape, Hines once again demonstrated his remarkable legal acumen. Acting as his own defense, he argued his case so effectively that even the judge expressed admiration for his knowledge of criminal law. Ultimately, his escape attempt resulted in only 11 extra days being added to his sentence, an astonishingly light punishment for such a high-profile jailbreak. This escape marked the beginning of a legacy that would soon earn him the nickname Houdini Hines. Escape number 2, the Law Courts, 1957. In 1957, Alfred Hines continued his relentless battle to overturn his original conviction, bringing his case to the Queen's Bench Division. However, his courtroom appearance was not just about legal arguments. Hines, now infamous for his daring exploits, had carefully orchestrated another escape plan. Hines had filed a lawsuit against the police, claiming his arrest had been illegal. While the legitimacy of his claim was debatable, the trial gave him the opportunity to be transported to the law courts, an environment far less secure than a prison. was the perfect setting for his next move. As part of his meticulous plan, Hines had enlisted the help of accomplices outside the court. One accomplice smuggled a padlock to him during the trial, an act requiring precise timing to avoid detection. Another accomplice secretly installed a pair of screw eyes on the outside of a toilet stall near the courtroom. Everything was in place for his bold escape. During the proceedings, Hines requested a bathroom break, a routine request that drew no suspicion from the guards. 2 officers escorted him to the restroom and removed his handcuffs before allowing him to enter the stall. What happened next was a masterclass in audacity and improvisation. Hines moved quickly, pulling out the smuggled padlock. He overpowered the guards with surprising speed and skill, shoving them into the stall. He then secured the stall door with the padlock, effectively trapping the guards inside. Without hesitation, Hines strolled out of the building, blending seamlessly into the bustling crowd on Fleet Street. However, his newfound freedom was short-lived. Just 5 hours later, Hines made the mistake of showing up at an airport, likely intending to flee the country. His presence aroused suspicion and he was promptly apprehended and returned to custody. Escape 3. Chelmsford Prison, 1958. By now, Alfred George Hines, widely known as Houdini Hines, was a household name. His daring escapes had captured the public's imagination, and authorities took extra precautions to prevent yet another breakout. To avoid further embarrassment, they transferred him to Chelmsford Prison in secrecy. However, their efforts were no match for Hines' unyielding resourcefulness and ingenuity. At Chelmsford, Hines once again demonstrated his remarkable ability to outwit prison security. Using his technical skills, he crafted a key to the bathhouse, gaining access to an area that allowed him to reach the rooftop. From there, he maneuvered down to the prison grounds and made his way to freedom. An accomplice waited outside in a getaway vehicle, and just like that, Hines disappeared into the night. For nearly 2 years, Hines managed to evade capture, living under the alias William Herbert Bishop. He worked as a second-hand car dealer in Ireland. Even while on the run, Hines maintained his campaign to prove his innocence. He sent memorandums to British members of parliament, granted interviews to the press, and even recorded taped statements declaring his wrongful conviction. Not one to miss an opportunity, Hines sold his life story to the news of the world for a reported $40,000, further fueling public fascination with his life. However, Hines' penchant for taking risks eventually led to his downfall. In 1958, he was arrested in Belfast for possessing illegally imported vehicles. This marked the end of his freedom, as he was sent back to England and incarcerated at the notorious Parkhurst Prison. Despite his return to custody, Hines refused to be silent. He continued to appeal his conviction, even arguing his case before the House of Lords in 1960. During a 3-hour hearing, he contended that British law did not classify prison escapees as misdemeanors, attempting to exploit a legal technicality. However, his appeal was ultimately denied, and he was ordered to serve the remaining 6 years of his sentence at Parkhurst. Hines' legal battles didn't end there. While in prison, he filed a libel lawsuit against Herbert Sparks, the former Scotland Yard chief superintendent who had arrested him. Sparks had written a series of articles in the Sunday Pictorial, criticizing Hines and challenging his claims of innocence. Unable to substantiate these criticisms in court, Sparks was found liable, and Hines won a $1,300 settlement in 1964. This victory further cemented Hines' image as a man fighting against justice. In 1964, after serving his full sentence, Hines was released from prison. By this point, he was a national celebrity, admired for his intellect, defiance, and resilience. He retired to Jersey, where he started a business and became a sought-after public speaker, often criticizing the English legal and penal systems. Hines also joined Mensa, highlighting his extraordinary intelligence which had been a key factor in his escapes and legal battles. In a final twist that showcased his reputation as an escape artist, Hines became a target of a bizarre prank in 1967. During a visit to debate at the Polytechnic, now the University of Westminster, 6 students kidnapped him and locked him in a basement as part of a hazing ritual. True to form, Hines managed to escape the basement, locking his captors inside before walking away unscathed. Even in retirement, Alfred Hines proved that no cage could hold him for long. Hines' story captivated the public for decades. From his escapes to his relentless efforts to prove his innocence, he became a symbol of rebellion and brilliance. Through his semi-autobiographical book, Contempt of Court, he shared his perspective on the failings of the legal system that had imprisoned him. Alfred Hines passed away in 1991 at the age of 74, leaving behind a legacy as one of history's most audacious escape artists. His life, marked by defiance and ingenuity, remains a testament to the unyielding human spirit. As one observer remarked, Hines was simply never meant to be caged. Alfred George Hines wasn't just a criminal. He was a man who refused to let the system define him. From daring escapes to relentless courtroom battles, he fought not just for his freedom, but to tell his side of the story. One thing is certain, Hines' life was a masterclass in defiance, resourcefulness, and resilience. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to Breakout Bank for more videos.